No, I still swear the pregnancy test had to be wrong. You cannot get pregnant from a blowjob. She still didn't believe me. I just, it is what it is.
Well, see, guys can if a guy pees on a pregnancy test, then it'll almost always come up positive. Used to sell them for $5 a pop.
Anyways, good evening and welcome to Between Two Wheels, where we talk about all things on and between two wheels. Tonight on 2WheeledLive, we plan to ride the coattails of the YouTube algorithm and ask, has Harley taken 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards? Tonight, joining Uncle Ken and I is none other than Mr. Gears and Gadgets himself, Dan.
Hey guys, pleasure to be on.
Oh,
So I had to explain it to Tracy, and she's kind of my litmus test. So the 2 steps forward, 1 step back. They did something great recently by bringing on a very competent female CFO for the first time in the company's history. Well, who knows about the whole competent thing? They haven't really had a competent CFO in years either, but that's neither here nor there. But are they picking on YouTubers? Dan, you put out a video which was a response to a video, and there's been a lot of these videos all about Million Dollar Bogan.
Right.
And how he's being censored by Harley Davidson Incorporated, in essence. That's kind of the gist of where it was going. So,
yeah. I saw your video, Dan, and then immediately, the YouTube algorithm said, "Hey, if you watch this one, you should watch this guy, this guy, this guy." And there was like three or so other YouTubers that hit on the same topic.
Right.
So I have to ask, because I did not see the video in question that got him in trouble. What was the issue behind it?
Okay, I'll give a quick rundown, and it's kind of funny because when I watched the video originally, I didn't watch it from a perspective of I need to take notes on this because it's going to turn into a huge controversy. I watched it probably taking a dump like everybody else and half paying attention. So the gist of his video was he put a cam in his CVO, his new 2020 CVO, and
let me interrupt you for a second. So for those of the listeners who don't know, we're talking about Million Dollar Bogan. He is an Australian YouTuber. He's a millionaire. He's a realtor, an investor, etc. He's ridden his motorcycle, Harley and a Honda Monkey and other motorcycles across Australia and some of the worst places ever, and completely thrashes these things.
I like the off-road Road King thing. That was phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, he just beats the shit out of these because he's got money, I mean,
yeah.
Like when they were talking about like, oh, this tow job to get you from here to here is going to end up costing you $5,000. He's like, I mean, he tried to haggle a little bit, but he was like, okay, and here's my card number. Mm-hmm. So he's a big YouTuber. He has a lot of subscribers. It's like what, 60,000?
Yeah, somewhere
8,000.
Yeah, and yeah, he makes pretty cool videos, and he rides the shit out of his motorcycles the way they're not supposed to be. They're not intended to be ridden. So, okay, now back to you, Dan. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew who Million Dollar Bogan was.
Yeah, and I also want to put a little bit into context, too, for people who might not be familiar. In my opinion, this is just obviously totally subjective, but I consider him to be a relatively, relatable rich person. Like, he's not, a pompous jerk for the most part.
Is he? And I have not done a lot of research on him. Is he a self-made millionaire?
Yeah,
that's why he's relatable, because he's a normal person who did well.
Yeah, he's any of us if we did a good job, and he also has mental health, pretty significant mental health issues, and does a a lot of talking about that and how his style of riding is for him, and specifically how it helps him with his mental health and stuff. So he does a little bit of that stuff too. But mainly the video that's in question is he goes into the dealership with his new CVO, and he had a cam put in it, 2020 CVO, and with the cam, basically it was producing too much power where the rear wheel was braking, and it was enabling the new traction control in like second or third gear, and it was just retarding the fuel delivery to the point where having the cam was basically useless. So he goes into the dealership, and he has friendly banter with the owner. Him and the owner are really good buddies, no different than any of us if we were super good friends with the owner of our local Harley dealer, type of thing. So he rides his bike straight into the shop, into the back, and starts breaking the balls of the owner, saying like, this Harley thing is garbage. Harley needs to figure it out. And the owner, his name is Colin of Geelong Harley Davidson in Australia. He actually was defending Harley and goes, nah, this isn't really a Harley problem. This is a tuner problem. The tuners need to figure this out and figure out how to disable this traction control issue basically after you're out of first gear, sort of thing. And so there was just a lot of banter back and forth. I think where Harley Davidson took exception, and I'm just guessing, and I reached out to Harley for comment, and of course they don't even acknowledge me. So, but I had to do it But so then he went and he started just busting chops in the shop and made some gay jokes basically. But the type of jokes that, like, when I watch them as an American, I'm just like, I personally probably wouldn't have made those jokes, but listening to it, I'm like, yeah, he's an edgy guy. He's gritty. He's definitely not PC. And I also take into account he's also Australian, and being here, being there, it's a totally different world, and you have to kind of respect that a little bit. So I didn't think all of that when I watched it. Literally, when I watched it, I was just like, oh man, this guy, like, he's just making jokes or whatever. And then he put a video out last week, 4 days ago, saying that Harley Davidson contacted Geelong Harley Davidson and essentially threatened. I'm going off of what he said, so I don't know how much of this is accurate or what actually transpired. But essentially, Geelong Harley Davidson said, hey, Geelong Harley Davidson, if you don't get him to pull that video down, there's going to be some sort of ramifications to Geelong Harley Davidson. Therefore, he put a video out saying, fuck Harley Davidson. Sorry, I shouldn't swear on your live stream. It's going to get demonetized. I'll have to cut that out. I owe you. So he says, he said,
thanks for taking the pressure off of me for ruining it. I'm okay with it.
So he puts a video out basically saying, hey, look, I'm not willing to be a puppet for Harley Davidson. I'm not sponsored by Harley Davidson. I'm a huge fan of the brand. I push the brand. I promote the brand. And I don't condone them telling me what I can and cannot say. However, I had to delete that video because if I don't, it's going to cost my friend who owns this dealership problems. So basically, Harley Davidson, in my opinion, silenced him by leveraging his friendship with the owner of this dealership. And this is where, we can all probably go off on a bunch of different analysis of how this all transpired and whether it should or shouldn't have happened, or even maybe what even happened to begin with.
I believe that's what they call blackmail.
Well, so without us, the general public, knowing exactly what Harley Davidson Australia told Geelong Harley Davidson.
He did say it was a call from U.S. Harley Davidson. He actually made that reference. So,
okay. So here's the thing. You took an aside from what he said because you heard it from an American's ear. Harley Davidson doesn't care about YouTubers. They don't care about us until there's a complaint. And the fact that the owners of Geelong Harley Davidson were involved with that video, and whatever the complaint was, if it was around the homosexual thing, okay. whatever it was enough for big Harley Davidson to get involved. So again, taking cultural differences out of the equation, us as content creators, it's our responsibility to know our audience, right? And if we know that 90% of our viewership is in Australia, then who cares? And I don't know his viewership, but if he sees that there's a significant amount of his fans coming out of the United States, it's good to kind of alter your language to be transversal across both sides of the Pacific, if you will. Now, something else to that point, one person calling and complaining to Harley Davidson's not enough. There had to have been a large enough group or the loud enough group to get involved.
Or someone just important enough.
I mean, look, we all love to tout our freedoms, freedom of speech. We as content creators love the freedom of the press because we get to utilize that. But with all freedoms comes a cost. And it could be reputation cost, it could be financial cost, or unfortunately, it could be violent costs. All based on the things that we say. Now, I did not hear what Bogan said on the video that he got in trouble for. And I don't know what Harley Davidson's franchise agreement looks like. But I know what many other franchise agreements have in them. And I've seen 3 in hand. They all have a morality clause. That morality clause is not to protect the franchisee, it's to protect the franchisor. In this case, it's there to protect Harley Davidson. Harley Davidson this year has utilized that morality clause. Was it July? They hit a Harley Davidson Abernathy Cycles because of a Facebook post around Black Lives Matter. If Harley took a stance on Black Lives Matter and didn't take a stance on homosexuality, is Harley Davidson in the wrong?
That's actually where I've been going through a lot of the comments on my video, and this is where, as recently as today, this is where I've kind of identified kind of where and why I take exception to this. Is context and intention are the 2 most important aspects of challenging somebody in the world of like you're saying, judging their actions. So the Abernathy thing, I actually went back and looked up what that guy's post was, and there was no parsing words. It was anti-Black Lives Matter, and
it sounded like a racist tirade.
Go back to where you came from, no questions asked. And at the end of the day, when you read that post on Facebook, the context was only meant to be exactly what was said. It wasn't joking or anything. Now, Million Dollar Bogan, he's in a shop environment, which anybody who's been in a shop understands is not a politically correct environment, no different than the local pub around the corner kind of thing. And the things that he was saying were clearly made in jest, maybe not good jokes, but bad jokes aren't the same as racist intention. And I don't think calling somebody homophobic for making a gay joke when it was clearly a joke is the same as somebody who's saying they hate people that are in that, so that's where I think I'm starting to differentiate a little between the 2. I have no problem with what Harley did with Abernathy at all. I think it was the right call if you're trying to protect the brand name.
See, and that's where, and I can agree with you on that, because I, as a jokester, I've told all sorts of jokes. And then a lot of them are off color, quote unquote off color. Is that racist? Fuck, did I just make a racist statement by saying off color? I don't fucking know anymore. But yeah.
Now I'm demonetized.
Yeah, now we're completely demonetized. Yeah, I mean, comedy is subjective. Go to any major stand-up comedian show. I'm talking Carlos Mencia, even Joe Rogan. You go talk to any of those real comedians who make millions of dollars doing comedy. And there's a difference between comedy and, like I said, being a damn racist.
Yeah.
And making a racist comment.
And there's also a difference between holding a dealership owner accountable and an independent content creator who isn't signed on to those franchise agreements, but you can get into the conversation about the dealership allowed him to do it. And that's where things get a little bit more gray area. And I do appreciate that aspect of it.
And look, we know that these major companies, when it comes to, let's say, intellectual property rights, a lot of really bad things could have gone down with Bogan if Harley wanted to be a dick about it. Instead, they went to the Harley owners and said, this is in breach, probably, of your morality clause. You allowed this with the name of your dealership, with our logo, our trademarked logo in the background inside of a private building. Again, at this point, because the general public does not know what actually went down between Bogan, the dealership, and Big Harley Davidson, everyone who's jumping onto a particular bandwagon, be it, oh, Harley did right by protecting their brand, which is my bandwagon, the other bandwagon of, okay, everyone needs to go rush to Bogan's aid. Because of the fact that we don't have the entire story, and we will never get the entire story, I think we're all kind of just battling over, or we're discussing null points, because none of us can back up anything, because everything we're going off of is hearsay, right?
Well, I sort of kind of, it's hearsay to know, to say like, okay, Harley contacted him, whatever. And I have a whole nother Harley defense way of looking at this, but for taking it at face value, and part of what we're all guilty of is consuming YouTube content and developing a relationship with people we're watching. So I'm guilty of that too. I've watched this guy's content, and I feel like I've learned his character over, the course of a year plus of watching his content.
But see, a lot of that can be just like that one word that you said, his character. Right. You never know what you see on YouTube. Is that a character, or is that who they are? Because I've met several big YouTubers, and the way they're on screen versus the way they are in person shaking your hand are almost all different.
Right. Yeah. So my point is that I saw the content, and there was nothing in that content that when I was done with it going like, oh man, this guy's like pushing the boundaries, or this guy, there was nothing in it that seemed, and I get accused of being a fence sitter all the time, because I love to look at both sides. So I take pride in being in the middle on subjects, and nothing in that was like, oh, somebody's going to flip out about that. But so hypothetically, they go through and they contact the dealership because of this content and force them to pull it down. My issue with that is it's 2020. TikTok is huge. Instagram's huge. Twitter's huge. All these things are huge. Harley Davidson has built a brand around community. Mm-hmm. In community, social media isn't just a little thing anymore. Everybody has it. Everybody who's buying a motorcycle, everybody who's buying a bike, who's probably under the age of 50 now, is going to have their phone out. They're going to be doing a TikTok, a Twitter, an Instagram, or whatever. If Harley Davidson theoretically is going to contact Million Dollar Bogan because of something he said in one of his content posts, is Harley Davidson now setting the tone that they're going to have to check the morality of every social media post and demand people pull things down if they've said something bad in the past, in the future? Where does that stop? When does a corporation get to leverage that weight?
But to your point, you're saying if Harley was to contact Bogan directly, They instead went to the dealership in which the incident took place.
Which means you're going to start seeing dealerships everywhere now with signs up saying no recording allowed. And is that really what you think a dealership should be? If all these dealers that own these buildings have to now worry that Harley Davidson is going to come down with a fist, of whatever, because of something one of their customers said, people are just going to say, I don't want the liability. You can't film in here, man.
Well, so if Uncle Ken walked into one of the local Harley shops filming, and he says something derogatory and it goes out, that's something different
A little bit.
than when you're in the video chumming, palling around, joking around with the owner of the dealership. And look, he's not a brand ambassador. He's not. But he refers to himself as one.
Right.
By doing that, he is staking a claim that he represents Harley Davidson. Again, perception is reality here. And if someone perceives that he is a brand ambassador in today's social sense of what a brand ambassador is, and they take serious offense to what he says, Harley has no choice but to stand up, because if they don't, they open themselves up for a lot of risk.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of legal work involved in that, because, I mean, granted, Australia is very similar to America, but they do have hate speech laws. Like, you can't technically make gay jokes, gay slurs, racial slurs, etc.
Right. And look, I don't think anyone here tonight is saying that we think Bogan said something because he's anti anything. We all understand it as a joke. It's all of us content creators. 90% of what we have to do is entertain. And let's face it, most of his nearly 70,000 subscribers are all probably Harley Davidson or motorcycle enthusiasts who probably don't take offense. But it's those non-subscribers that create the biggest headaches for you. It's those people who stumble across your page when they looked up 2020 CVO cam. You're the number one search result. Congrats. You've done a great job with your SEO and all that stuff. But now you're going to draw additional scrutiny. And look, we are nothing. We are tiny. Between Two Wheels is tiny. And I got hit with a cease and desist over our logo.
Wow.
Cool. And they were totally awesome about it. They said, hey, we understand. Just we're too close in common with the logo. Please change it. Okay. But again, you have to protect your intellectual property, your trademarks, your name, your reputation, your brand. And Harley Davidson protects their brand. They will dump everything else over their brand.
See, but that's where I have an issue. Like, they had, I don't know when it was, I'm going to say earlier this year, they went after like a small diner. I think one of your commenters on here mentioned it actually, because a diner had a Harley Davidson logo painted on the outside of the building, and it made national news. And it just comes off to me and a lot of people. I have to say that, otherwise nobody cares if it's just me. But it comes off as Harley Davidson, this brand of the people, is trying to crush the people. And in my opinion, sometimes you're better off doing nothing, which is always an option. You can just do nothing and have nobody ever notice that little logo on some stupid little diner that nobody gives a shit about. Maybe somebody in here does. You're going to pick that battle that becomes national news now. And now you've got to deal with that. Why? What's it worth?
Yeah. I mean, the perfect example of that restaurant issue is there's, of course, here in Texas and in closer places to us, we have Whataburgers. Well, there was some place in Georgia or some shit, some freaking podunk shack that had like, 2 workers on a good day that had been there for 30 years was named What a Burger. And Whataburger was, the big corporate chain of Whataburger was going after them to change their name. Like someone might mistake your trailer that you sell burgers out of for one of us all the way in Texas and shit. And I think the little guy ended up winning because, spelling was different, logos were different, design, everything was different. And
all these major corporations forget about LLC laws. If they don't have an LLC in that state and that guy does, he wins. He registered the name in the state before Whataburger Inc. got in there.
Yeah.
And that's my point with this $1 Million Bogan thing is I just go through all of the hypotheticals where Harley did reach out, and like I said, I still have one that maybe they didn't. But in that world, it's like I blame Harley Davidson for the fact that they do ignore YouTubers. And if you watched my video, the point that I made is like I picked 9 of the bigger YouTubers and specifically in the Harley Davidson space that have 150 million views. To Harley Davidson's 50 million. It's an arbitrary kind of game, I guess, to play. But just to make a general point, YouTubers aren't little. Even my little-ish channel, I've got 4 million views. That's 4 million eyeballs that have seen my content. Significant. So Harley Davidson, if they were smart, instead of just going after $1 Million Bogan, they would have a boardroom meeting today and say, okay, social media department, we have a problem. This might happen 100 times next year as this stuff continues to grow and becomes a bigger problem. We need to create a portion in our marketing department where we start developing relationships with these YouTubers, not sending free bikes, not sending t-shirts, not actually material support, but even just press release support, or like Apple does, invite people to the release of the new bike so they can cover it and start developing some relationships, especially for people who have 50,000 plus subscribers. Maybe set the benchmark somewhere. So when you have a problem, you have somebody who developed a relationship. Mark over at Harley can call over to $1 Million Bogan and go, hey man, you're kind of putting me in a really shitty spot right now. Can you try to tone it down? Which goes a million times further than, hey, G-Long Harley Davidson, call Danny, tell him take that shit down or we're going to shut your shop down tomorrow. It's like you don't need to cram the fist down their throat. You can intellectually handle the situation.
Again, we don't know the ramp up.
Right.
So there could have been warnings to the Harley shop.
It's possible.
And they may not have shared those warnings with both. Again, it's all speculation. And that's why I'm going to side with Harley. And here's why.
You're getting paid. I know that's why.
I wish. I am so unemployed right now. No freaking prospects.
That's what somebody who's getting paid by Harley Davidson would want you to believe.
Yeah. But the reason I have to take their side is because of the fact that they got involved. If they got involved, there was enough concern. Now, you bring up the 140 million, whatever it is, to their 50, 80, whatever. Here's the thing. All of our viewers, let's say 99% of our viewers, already are on motorcycles. I'm betting the majority of our viewers are on Harleys. And if you take that into consideration, how valuable is our video content to their company? Now, yes, it's good in the fact that we show the lifestyle aspect of it, but does that actually help someone when they're trying to go buy a bike? or trying to get non-Harley riders into their dealerships. You know what I mean?
I would argue that every single buyer under 30, before they spend that $23,000, has probably consumed 50 YouTube videos. So they might watch me, Maxwell, Sandoval, you, the other guy. And so did I personally convert that sale? No. But did my content matter? Yes. And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make, is that I've gotten comments on my channel. I get them actually frequently from people who are like, hey, thanks for pointing out the things you don't like about the bike. Or, hey, because Harley's not going to tell you that stuff. They're giving you polished stuff.
Right.
So people in 2020, again, this is kind of an opinion, but I think statistics probably do go that way, that people want organic content. That's people in today's world want to see real people interacting with real product and honest opinions, not corporate polished turds. So that's my opinion. But so I think that, yeah, most of our audience does own bikes, but there's definitely a handful of people who have reached out to me saying, hey, thanks, you helped me, decide to buy that Heritage. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, when I was buying my first Harley, I watched hours and hours of each of the models I was looking at and who was riding them and where they were riding them. I mean, just hours of it. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think specifically anybody's going to go out and buy a Harley just because of me. If anything, they might stay away from it.
And in all honesty, I don't think them going after Bogan affected their sales in any possible way.
I agree with that.
I don't.
Except they are receiving a bunch of free press by all of us.
By the way, Toby Northern, just to make it clear, no, I am not calling Jason Mamoa a polished turd, because that man could end my life in about 6 seconds. So,
dude, I ain't scared. He's a polished turd. Jason Mamoa, if you ever see this video, you come find me. All right, send me an email. We'll meet up. All right.
Let me film it.
And yeah, we'll film it too.
And afterwards, we'll go have some beers.
If you give me enough notice, I'll make a brisket. So, I mean,
but I talked a lot of trash when I first saw the advertising with Mamoa. But something that I didn't consider right off the bat, and why I recanted my statement the next episode, Jason Mamoa brings in brand new people.
Yep.
And that's what Harley needs. They need new blood. They need that guy that doesn't ride. And I still think a legacy series in commercial form would be perfect for them. Show a grandfather on an old school bike or on a brand new, tri-glide. Have him on that. Have father, or more importantly, grandma, mom, and daughter. Something like that to show that. I mean, but his campaign was a very positive campaign. And yeah, his YouTube only has X millions of things. However, you go look at a Google search results for
Instagram.
Jason Mamoa. You exactly go look at his Instagram, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm betting he has more Instagram followers than all those 9 YouTubers combined,
and the viewers
with a multiplier. So yes, on YouTube, Jason Mamoa, Harley Davidson, they're not as big as, to your point, 9 YouTubers who focus solely on riding Harley, creating, their motorcycle content. But the Jason Mamoa brand is still significantly larger.
Let me ask you a question. Would you think, I think you're being sexist here. So if you look at her 2Wheels, right? She's blown up to like 60,000 subscribers and
76,000 as of today.
76,000. She's enormous, right? So I'm sure there's a handful of those people who are just like creepy old men that are watching her content. I'm sure makes up a pretty big demographic. But would you think that Mamoa is reaching more new riders, or somebody like her 2Wheels is reaching more new riders in the world of like females? Like I would imagine that those girls are converting women at a faster rate than Jason Momoa is converting 18-year-old guys.
Well, but that's just it. Her 2Wheels, it's a great example. And I'm sure if we saw her demographics on the screen, she would probably be significantly more in the female area. And yes, it helps that she's an attractive woman. But I'm going to say that they went to Jason Momoa because he can get both guys and girls, and his age range, his demographic is toddlers to 65, 70-year-old women. So he has a much larger reach. And yeah, they pay him $1 million to go out and do one video. And I'll tell you, it's going to do really, really well with his demographic range, where if they flew all of the top 10 Harley or even just motorcycle content creators, sent them all out and had them create a video, it won't have the same sales impact because, again, the demographics of our viewers, our followers, are not new Harley riders for the most part.
Well, we'd all be sellouts if we did that.
You're providing the filler content is basically what it boils down to. You're providing all that content. So when a sales guy's blowing smoke up somebody's ass at a dealership, that person gets to go home and watch endless hours of a bunch of different creators that are ultimately turning that person who turned around and walked out of the dealership into somebody who turns around and walks back in again. And that's the value of that content.
It is,
in my opinion.
But how does Harley figure out the best people to push their brand?
That's why I think they don't. Well, honestly, I think you sponsor Blockhead, or you. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. I think once you get to the point of a Blockhead or something, at that point, there's really no harm in sponsoring because he's already made that audience. I don't think anybody would be shocked if he got that sponsorship. But when you're talking about people in the, 50,000 subscribers, even 150,000 subscribers in that range, no different than YouTube. I mean, YouTube has it set up right now where I can't call anybody at YouTube. I don't have any contacts. But when you get to 100,000 or 1 million or whatever, they start providing you with some sort of outreach. They're not sponsoring you. They're not giving you anything. They're giving you a plaque, which I'll probably cry like a baby if I ever get one. But they're giving you like nothing. So I think
but they're assisting you in creating more content that helps them sell more ads.
And Harley Davidson could be doing the same thing to kind of butter you up a little bit.
There's no way. Here's the thing. Every major corporation out there runs on metrics. And how can Harley Davidson accurately track how their sales are coming in from these YouTubers? Because we can't order anything off of their website. I mean, people can click all day long from a link that they give us, but yeah, that just drives them to Harley's website. There's nothing there that shows a conversion. Now, Justin, he has a deal set up with Alamo City Harley Davidson. They know by mentioning his name, they get something for free. He also gets notified, okay, another sell because you drove traffic. But that's something that the dealership has to do. And I don't think Harley Davidson in today's environment, and really yet up to today, they don't have the capacity to have a program set up to where they can track who are the big YouTubers. And then how do they manage if you have 3 massive YouTubers all in the same general sales area? Yeah, how do you pick which one to sponsor and which one's going to drive more activity your way?
Yeah, because that was like when Do It With Dan and freaking Motonosity and Chase, they were all within like an hour of each other or some shit in Georgia. I mean, who are you gonna pay?
Yeah, and that's why I don't think paying is the answer, because I think people like me, people like Maxwell built their entire life around just making the content because they enjoyed Harley Davidson. They were just, I think creators still will do that because there's endless amounts of us who love the Harley Davidson lifestyle, the product, the brand, that we're happy just making the pennies that we make on YouTube to continue this support of this endeavor that we do. It's a passion thing. I do know a lot of creators, and I know larger creators that feel like there is no support from the brand. And I don't think I don't want to say anybody. Sure, there's people out there that'll be like, oh, cool, free road glide. But I don't think that people are really looking for that type of support. Uncle Ken. You'll only take a sponsorship if they give you 2 road glides. But,
yeah, well, I mean, yeah.
In my opinion, I think that it's just kind of like people like me, and I'll just speak for myself. It's like, man, it'd be nice to know if you're going to set a goalpost for social acceptability, accountability, it'd be nice to kind of know what those expectations are as a creator, because how many people are out there now that are creating that just saw what happened to Bogan, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, that are now like, oh, geez, like, what do I have on my channel that Harley's going to come after me for now? But
again, I think we're all focusing on Bogan because it was his video that had to be taken down.
Yeah.
But this really wasn't about Bogan. This was about the owner of the dealership participating, and look, he is the owner of a franchise, is a direct representative of the company in which he's a member of that franchise. That's just how it is. Now, from a legal standpoint, yeah, they are separate. But let's face it, you say I work for Harley Davidson, they all think that, for the lay person, they all think all the Harley shops belong to Harley Davidson. That's because every shop has Harley Davidson in the name. So it is what it is. And again, I'm not saying what Bogan did was wrong. I'm not saying what he said was wrong. I am saying that the dealer was in a bad spot. It was a bad set of circumstances, which appears to aligned into a perfect storm.
Yeah.
Because enough people, or to Ken and your point, Dan, the right people got wind of it and escalated it up to Harley. And again, Harley Davidson wants to rebuild their brand. They've been trying to get away from the rough and tumble image of the outlaw biker for years, and it's been unsuccessful. But we're starting to see the softer edge of Harley when it comes to their image, and they don't want to be portrayed as racists. They don't want to be portrayed as people who are not, tolerant or whatever of homosexuality.
Well, what happens now in a world where, like, if you go down that rabbit hole, and I sort of alluded to it at the end of my video, I think, but you go down that rabbit hole, when does Harley say, hey, every Harley dealership, we don't want the motorcycle clubs. You're not allowed to have them at your dealerships at all anymore. Oh yeah, by the way, Scottsdale Harley Davidson, which is like Walt Disney World here, the place is enormous. You can't have events with alcohol anymore because we can't have guys riding out of here getting killed. By the way, your music is too loud also, and you're offending the people who drive by who don't like rock and roll. At what point do you just make these dealerships just a place of a transaction, which goes away from the entire business model that Harley has laid out for the last 100 years of, we build the bikes, we give them to the dealerships create these incredibly personal relationships with the people of their community, and the people of their community are who they are. But now we can't have that, embrace that anymore. Now you're basically just a place of a transaction. I think it just crushes the brand. I guess it's just a question of where does that stop. So I agree with what you're saying. You got to kind of put your foot down in a sense, but I think Harley could have easily come out and said, they could have actually, if they wanted to, put out a statement that probably nobody would have even saw, that said, this YouTuber said some things. We just want to make it very clear that, you know, he is not an employee of Harley Davidson. You know, they could have personally addressed it with him as opposed to the dealership where I think it belonged, and said, you know, we don't condone it, and then reached out to the dealer and said, just so you know, we've had to distance ourselves from this guy, and we just can't have him filming your dealership anymore, and then let that guy deal with his friendship however he wants to deal with his friendship. And maybe that's what happened. That's part of my hypothetical is maybe Harley never even called. Maybe this owner of this dealership just said, like, he knew that what was being said was unacceptable and said, like, hey, Danny, you can't film like that in here. Harley called me. They're pissed. And like just something, just a little drop of a nugget to hope that maybe he cooled off, and maybe he ran home, turned his camera on, and blew his lid. You know.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, for all we know, Bogan could have, you know, made the video, and when it went live, they started calling the shop.
Yeah.
And then Colin, or whatever his name is, turned around and called Bogan and said, "Hey, you need to take that down."
Yeah.
You know, because people are threatening to call corporate over this.
Yeah, and again, we only know Bogan's side, and we only literally know his version of it. We don't know what happened between the dealership and Harley, if, to your point, if anything. We don't know what kicked it all off, and we don't know of any history there. So I think in Bogan's situation, he's getting caught up in something from what it looks like. And
something he created, literally content creation that he made. It's fair.
And look, we have to take down some of our stuff sometimes. It is what it is. And him taking it down for his friend, that's a great reason to do it. But I probably would have played it a little bit differently. But again, I don't know the situation. I don't know all of the circumstances there. But I would have owned it. I mean, and from what I've seen of Bogan, and not a lot, he doesn't seem to be the type of guy to shy away from a mistake. So,
no,
in his eyes, he didn't do anything wrong. And in the vast majority of the comments from his followers, his fans, they don't agree with what's going on either. Great.
Yeah, and I want to be clear too. There's another video that you guys probably didn't see because it definitely wasn't Harley related. He put it out, I think maybe right before he put this other video out, where he talks about his mental health. And I don't like talking about other people's issues like that, but he did publish it, basically saying that he's had issues previously where he goes off on, in his own business, his real estate business, where he'd go into certain environments and blow his top and then leave and feel embarrassed, and sort of like anger issues and things like that he owns, and he talks about that. So it's also important context that if that's been an issue in the past, and that's why I'm trying to play this scenario out of like maybe there was a lighter phone call that just triggered like, hey, I'm not backing down to corporate America. It may have triggered a response, but just watching the content and the way that he explains it, the reason where I call it reasonable is just I'm not going to be a mouthpiece for a corporation that I'm not even sponsored by. It's kind of like they don't own me, and they're not going to own my words, and I'll say whatever I want. So instead of backing down, like Roblox, you're saying you would own that content and just maybe go the other way and take it down and back channel type of thing maybe. But I think in his way, he's like, I'm not yours to tell me what to do and double down on it to say, I think it's wrong that you leverage my friendship to make me pull content. And it's the only reason I pulled it was because of my friendship, not because I wanted to pull it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a weird scenario in general, but.
And honestly, it shows how incredibly boring the motorcycle world is right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
right now.
I saw back a couple weeks back, Harley shut down their plant in India. And I'm like, everyone had such an uproar when they opened it in India. Why can't they show praise when they shut it down? I mean, come on.
Nobody said anything.
No, I mean, if you go and look for it, it's probably like the 10th freaking page. But I mean, look, Harley is a major brand. They don't have the ability to dictate what is and isn't acceptable. Their shareholders dictate what is and isn't acceptable. And at the end of the day, no one on Wall Street cares what is happening on Main Street. They care what is going to get into the news and get into the shareholders' heads.
Freaking Maxwell popped in.
Oh, hi, John.
John, for those of you who don't know, John used to be a YouTuber. I don't know, what was it, 3 years ago?
I did reach out to him just the other day, and he says he is doing well. So, and as we can see here, someone is at least pretending to be him to show that he's
Yeah, these are the images you see on some Discovery show years from now. Whoever has him captive right now, and they were posting things on live chat.
Investigative Discovery reports.
He would not use those emojis. I know that John would not use those emojis.
He said, crying smiley face, barely. What are you, 16?
And a girl? There it is on the screen.
Yeah, look at that right next to that icon. That icon. That's not him.
Oh man.
We'll send the authorities. Maxwell Motorcycles.
Deez is in the house.
Hey, Deez, we're getting everybody now.
So
you know,
gotta hang out
so
here
you know what would make us YouTubers happy with Harley? Any of us in the motorcycle world, and especially us that enjoy the Harley side of it, is if the motor company would just do better with the press. Invite us to events, that you would do for press only, because a lot of places don't consider people like us as the press, because we don't hold an NBC badge or a Fox News badge or whatever.
The International Motorcycle Show and events, or whatever the hell, they consider us press. They give us press passes, and they even make me, or they don't make me, but they invite me to all of these webinars. Urgent press release. You cannot tell anyone about this until this day at this time. And I'm looking at the press release. I'm like, none of my viewers give two craps about this.
Yeah. No, but I think, if Harley wanted to connect with the YouTube world, then invite us to, give us early press release information. You can always sign a deal and be like, hey, I'm not going to release this ahead of time. If not, et cetera, et cetera. I'd be okay with that. If they give us, like a week ahead of time of their press release,
especially video content creators. We need time to be able to do our research, because let's face it, if we just get one source, we have to back it up somewhere.
And you should,
if
you want to have some form of journalistic integrity.
The problem with Harley is that they want everything to be done internally. In my opinion, they want to control their messaging so much that they let these kinds of conversations of speculation occur, which aren't healthy for the brand. There's nothing healthy about us talking about theoretical what happened. They could have had a cut and paste response to They could have had a cut and paste response to this $1 Million Bogan thing. I sent an email. I can guarantee you that others did. And the best part is when you reach out to their media department, it says that they respond to every email. They do not. So don't even say that you're going to respond to it if you're not. Which
if they do, if they do it in a year or so, it still counts.
Yeah, the response is going to be a message reply that says the receiver never opened this email. That's going to be the response. But in my opinion, you just have a cut and paste sort of response. So for every dummy like me who thinks that they're, self-important, can come onto their YouTube channel and say, hey, look, Harley is saying that they, 2 sentences, they didn't condone what was said and they felt that they had to intervene and end the story, some nonsense. But, they don't even try to do it 0% to rate for any of these creators at all that I'm aware of, big or small. So it just seems like they ignore the platform until they want to address it. And I think that's why there's a lot of backlash with YouTubers in particular. And I'll speak for myself. The reason why I look at it from a backlash point is that if you're going to set rules and you're going to threaten any kind of action, there should be some sort of department or somebody who can explain what those rules are.
That you can actually get a hold of?
Even if it's just a PDF on their website that says, hey, if you're a content creator, just FYI, if you're creating content around our brand, we look out for these, 5 things. And, we don't want to interject. We want you to be independent and do your thing. But these are the things that we take very seriously. Please don't have us get involved with your stuff. Whatever. I mean, they could distance themselves from this as far as they want with some sort of guidance to the people who are going to continue making content. This isn't going away. It's going to get bigger.
I could see that, but then now you're talking about user agreements and things like that people aren't going to be willing to do. I mean, here's the thing. If you go onto your YouTube channel and you're not affiliated with Harley Davidson at all and you run your mouth off, they have legal recourse if what you state is false.
If you're presenting it as fact.
Correct. Yeah. So, look, I think the hardest part for me when I hear YouTubers complaining that they don't get anything from Harley Davidson, I have to ask myself, other than emailing their media contacts, what else are you doing to try and get on board with them? Are you talking to the local sales reps in your region? Are you at your dealership working with their finance and insurance managers, building the relationships within the business? Are you working with their marketing team and building that relationship? Because look, everything that happens in Harley Davidson's marketing teams, no matter what dealership it is, it has to go through Big Harley.
But I'm going to tell you right now, everything that just happened, without context, knowing that there was something that happened, every dealership, don't be surprised if they just go, hey, we can't have content creators in here at all because I'm not going to risk my bacon for something stupid you said. You're not even paid by me. I want nothing to do with you. And that's what I'm getting at now is that if this is
I can see that.
What's that?
Oh, I can absolutely see that right there.
Yeah. If you own a dealership, what do you care about gears and gadgets riding around a street glide and might say something dumb?
Yeah,
and
why are you here?
Your livelihood so that he can go and make, a half a nickel for every 200 million views he gets. Like that. What's the end game for them? It's really not a whole lot.
But again, everyone, especially in America, and I'm going to caveat, this is a very American issue, but everyone is afraid of a lawsuit.
Yep.
So if I go to the local Harley shop here and I say, oh, these guys sponsored me by letting me use their bikes and all this other stuff, that puts that dealership on the hook because they are sponsoring the content. It is assumed, positive or negatively assumed, that they have approved that content. Therefore, they're taking liability. Look, if every Harley Davidson dealership out there says, okay, no recording inside the dealership, I can respect that because, again, if I'm the business owner, I don't want to get sued.
Well, then they better take the gongs down and all the fanfare of all that shit, because if you're going to have those things about, hey, look at me, but don't record it. Everybody look at me, but nobody record this. It's never happened. If you say you were here, we're going to deny it. It's like, what are you creating? You want to create an environment where everybody talks about your brand, even idiots.
Yeah, I'm betting nothing at all is going to come from this. Nothing.
Yeah.
My video has 10,000 views. I guarantee you Harley Davidson called an after-hours meeting, and they're all sitting in a boardroom right now only watching my video, trying to figure out how to handle this shitstorm.
I hope so. For your sake, I hope. And
I-
when they
I
call
don't
you,
hope so.
and then when they call you, you're going to cut a deal with them that everyone in that board meeting has to buy one T-shirt, and then you'll quit.
No, they have to buy 100 T-shirts. It's not a big board. And those,
I meant take down the video. That's what I meant.
No, but I just really, I guess that's my biggest thing. And I'm happy that you guys asked me to, or last minute kind of shot me an email to jump on, because I'm certainly not ignorant to the fact that there's a lot of speculation, and a lot of my content. And the reason I say what I say isn't necessarily just to play into like a speculative nature, but it's coming off of like, I've been doing this for a few years now, and I'm starting to kind of learn the value of the content, which is certainly part of it, but what goes into a lot of this. And it's just getting very frustrating to see that I don't have anybody that I can even get a hold of. The larger content creators, not that I'm aware of, have any direct contacts. Like maybe somebody like Blockhead might, I don't know. But it's kind of frustrating to see. And that's my overall point is, if you're going to set some sort of set of rules for independent content creators, you better be careful about it, but you better kind of do it so that, you know, you're not having people who leverage hundreds and hundreds of millions of views, turning it all into Adam Sandoval's producing content, telling you to go and buy an Indian. You know, that ain't going to help Harley Davidson.
well, and the other side of this too, people look at the sponsorship that they did with Adam Sandoval, with Harley, and what they did. But he was brilliant in how he marketed himself. And that part of all of this, we all have to market and sell ourselves, and do so in a way that makes sense and still lives up to your brand. And Adam is a rock star at marketing, hands down. And he's as big as he is now because he has that competence. And whenever I hear any YouTubers complaining about, oh, well, the big companies don't look at me, why should they? Give them a reason and serve a purpose. If all of your videos are out there about you complaining about everything that they're doing, they're not going to sponsor you. If you point out all the crap about what they have and nothing positive, or you don't show any type of innovation in what you're doing with your channel and how you're reaching your audience, if you're doing the same thing all of us are doing by just setting up a camera in front of my computer and I'm talking into it, I'm not doing anything that's innovative, that's going to draw a massive crowd to want to listen to me as an expert. So, you know, if we look at people like John, being in here, he built an audience around the one thing he could do: trust. Here's what I'm doing. Here's the issues with it. And here's all the myths that all the YouTube mechanics are telling you how to do it. Here's what the actual way to do it. And here's why. He built trust. And he's gotten big for it. But if you're sub 100,000 on YouTube today, we're nobody. In the grand scheme, we are nobody.
And that's why it's important that, like, let's just say that the benchmark is 250,000 subscribers. Now you've made it. Now you're a big deal. Now Harley's got to pay attention. Why in this scenario would they not have the ability to call up a Blockhead and say, hey, do me a solid, would you, and maybe make a video with this statement that we've prepared so that all the other bottom feeders like Gears and Gadgets understand that there actually was something that was addressed, or, that all comes down to just acknowledging that the platform is relevant. Not to say that I'm important, but again, my point is I may not be horribly important, but I guarantee you that if I turn around and sell my heritage for a Challenger tomorrow and start producing that content, that's not good for Harley Davidson. And for them to not acknowledge that fact is ignorant of the world we live in today, that this stuff is real and it's only going to get bigger, and they cannot control that narrative the old school way. Do you guys watch Doug DeMuro at all? The car guy. He's pretty big, but he's multi-million subscriber car reviewer, and he makes the joke all the time. He's like, "Look, I don't get press cars because these people don't. They still think it's more valuable to put an ad in a magazine, and they'll spend $100,000 for some write-up in Motor Trend that nobody's buying." Nobody's even looking at it. So it's like old school media, and Harley's on that level of old school media. They want to control it all. And sorry, but it's 2020. You've lost control of the content because people aren't watching your content.
Yeah. If you type in Harley Davidson into YouTube right now, is their channel the first thing that pops up?
No. And it doesn't, because they direct the traffic back to their website. So YouTube doesn't even promote their content because they're driving traffic off the platform. So they don't even understand YouTube in general, how to embrace it as a multi-million-dollar company. Like, they don't understand it at a level that I do, and I'm just an idiot. So, that's concerning.
It's one of those things where I don't even look at subscribers, because you could have 10,000 subscribers, but only 1,000 of them are actually active. I think we have something like 1,200 subscribers on the channel here, but I have 20 that I can count on every time we do a live stream to always be in here. And most of them don't actually participate in the chat. We have 4 or 5 regulars who do, and I appreciate all of you. But the views and how long are people actually watching the content? That's the stuff that matters. But again, YouTubers have sold themselves on their subscribers, and that's been the way that everyone looks at it. I had a company tell me they wouldn't even touch us because we didn't have 1,000 subscribers, and that they wouldn't touch us unless we had over 10,000 subscribers. I was like, that's cool. Thanks. And 3 months later, they reach out to me with a pitch. I'm like, wait, I still haven't crossed 1,000 subscribers. We hit 100,000 downloads on our little podcast thing that we did a while back. But YouTube, we're nobody. I look at it like there's dormant sites out there, dormant channels that have more subscribers than we do. But I like the quality of the subscribers, the people who actually go and push those watch times into the 30 minutes on these hour-long live streams.
Are you calling John Maxwell's site dormant?
No.
It's getting close. It's getting close.
Look, he's a brand new business owner.
I know. He's busier than hell.
He is busy as hell, yes.
At the end of the day, he's still making money on his YouTube channel, even not putting anything out.
Yeah.
So I'm just happy that he's too busy to make content.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's when he's in a good spot. He's earned it.
Yeah. But with that being said, I hope that everyone understands that this is not a live stream about who's right, who's wrong, because at this point it's only speculation. This is about, in general, at what point should a company the size of Harley Davidson put their foot down with content creators, saying these items, to Dan's point, these items are off limits. We will come after you if you put these things on here because we don't want them associated with our brand. I'd be happy to see that, because then I know when I'm going to start getting all the really nasty emails. But without that, how do you go after a bogan? How do you go after anybody who's putting out content, good or bad? If there's 100 views on a video, on a piece of content, that's 100 sets of eyes that you may not have ever had look at your brand. They're looking at it. It may have been a negative video, but that could drive them to look for the other side of that story, just like we're looking at it here today.
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, we're all content creators. We want to produce content that entertains our audience. Sometimes we go overboard. Sometimes we offend. With Uncle Ken, it's all the time he offends. And look, if you find something that your content creator is offending you on, let them know. Sometimes we do not know that we're being offensive. If I make a homosexual joke on air, I know I have people who are going to let me know, hey, Dick, you need to watch out with this stuff. Fair enough. Let me know. Let your creators know that you don't like some of the stuff they're saying. Because again, if we don't know, we cannot alter it. And we may know it's offensive, and that was the point. Maybe we are just that much of an asshole.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't email me if you think I'm offensive.
Yeah, don't email Uncle Ken at Between2Wheels.com. The 2 is spelled out TWO.
Yeah, and to play it to that level too, how many of those, if there is an email, how many of those emails just become the topic of that person's next video because it's going to get clicks, which, you know, I guess I'm not super smart and haven't thought this one totally through, but I don't know.
So I purposely didn't title this live stream Save Bogan because I didn't want to clickbait everyone into coming into it. Now, after we terminate this, I am going to totally change the title of this because, again, I'm going to ride the YouTube algorithm and get that view time. But to everyone else who's still on and who's watching this later on, thank you all for tuning in. It's always nice having two good friends, Uncle Ken and Dan, on the show. And we are still making content. It is slow, but it is coming. I am getting out of my funk, and I'm going to start doing some stuff. So just bear with us. Again, we are every other week until something good starts happening. And hopefully we can start getting back into the studio and recording some actual podcasts soon. Everyone, thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. Dan, Ken, thank y'all.
Thank you guys very much. It was a good time.
Good talking to you.